You've seen them. Those people who move through life like nothing touches them. A crisis hits and they breathe. Someone insults them and they smile. The world throws chaos at their feet and they step over it with the grace of someone who knows something you don't. Why can't you be like that? Instead, you're here, reactive, triggered, constantly at the mercy of whatever the day decides to throw at you. A text left on read sends your mind spinning. A co-worker's tone ruins your morning. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and suddenly you're carrying that anger into your evening, into your relationships, into your sleep. You're not broken, you're not weak, you're human. But you're also trapped in a pattern that most people never escape. The pattern of giving your power away to anyone and anything that knows how to push the right buttons. Here's what's really happening. You think you're responding to the world, but you're not. You're responding to a story you've been telling yourself for so long that you've forgotten it's just a story. What if you could stop letting the world control you? What if you could become one of those people who stays calm while everyone else loses their minds? That's not just possible, it's your birthright. But first you need to understand what's really going on. The hidden problem. You're not reacting to reality, but to a story. Here's the truth that will change everything. Most of your emotional pain doesn't come from what happens to you. It comes from what you think what happens to you means. Picture this. You're at the gym, and someone across the room frowns in your direction. In that split second, your mind starts writing a story. They think I don't belong here. They're judging my form. They think I'm too fat, too weak, too whatever. Within minutes, you're drowning in shame about something that never actually happened. The frown, maybe they were thinking about their grocery list. Maybe they have a headache. Maybe they weren't even looking at you. But your story turned a neutral facial expression into a personal attack. The Stoics figured this out over 2,000 years ago. Epictetus said it plainly. It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about them. Not the thing itself, your judgment about the thing. Think about your last argument, your last breakdown, your last sleepless night spent replaying a conversation. How much of that pain came from what actually happened, and how much came from the story you told yourself about what it meant? If we're not even seeing the truth, if we're reacting to our own interpretations and assumptions rather than reality, what are we really fighting? We're shadow boxing with our own thoughts. But here's where it gets both terrifying and liberating. If the story is the problem, then the story can be rewritten. The Stoic insight, your mind is the battlefield. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern psychology is just catching up to. Freedom isn't about controlling what happens to you. It's about mastering what happens within you. Your mind runs on programming, scripts written in childhood, reinforced by experience, triggered by the world around you. Someone raises their voice, and suddenly you're 8 years old again, bracing for impact. Someone doesn't text you back, and suddenly you're reliving every rejection you've ever felt. These scripts run automatically. You don't choose them, they choose you. They've been choosing you for years, maybe decades. But what if you could rewrite the code? Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, knew that real power wasn't about commanding armies or ruling nations. Real power was about ruling himself. He wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The battlefield isn't out there, it's in here, between your ears, in the space where stimulus meets response, in the moment where you choose what something means. Most people never realize they have a choice. They live their entire lives as passengers in their own minds, carried along by whatever emotion happens to grab the wheel. You can't rewrite the code unless you first pause to see it. But when you do pause, when you catch yourself in the act of creating a story, that's when everything changes. The power of the pause. There's a space, a tiny gap between what happens to you and how you respond. Most people live their entire lives without ever noticing this space exists. They go straight from trigger to reaction, from stimulus to response, like a reflex. Someone pushes, they push back. Someone hurts them, they hurt back. Someone makes them angry, they become anger itself. But that space, that pause, is where your freedom lives. Aristotle understood this. Anyone can be angry, that is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, this is not easy. The pause is where you ask, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my energy? Is this even about what I think it's about? Here's what happens in the pause. You observe instead of absorb. You notice the feeling without becoming the feeling. You see the story forming without believing it's the only story possible. Every time you pause, you grow stronger. Every time you choose your response instead of being chosen by it, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you refuse to be reactive, you become more yourself and less a victim of circumstance. But how do you actually pause when everything in you is screaming to react? When your heart is pounding and your thoughts are racing and every instinct is telling you to fight or flee or fix or defend? The answer is simpler than you think and more difficult than you imagine. Step by step, how to train your mind. Training your mind is like training your body. It requires consistency, patience, and the understanding that small efforts compound into massive changes over time. Step 1. Observe, don't absorb. When emotion hits, your first instinct is to become it. You don't just feel angry. You are anger. You don't just feel hurt. You are pain. You don't just feel anxious. You are anxiety itself. Instead, try this. Notice it. I'm noticing anger right now. I'm noticing hurt. I'm noticing my heart racing and my thoughts spinning. You're not trying to stop the feeling. You're not trying to fix it or change it or make it go away. You're simply observing it, the way you might observe clouds passing through the sky. The clouds are there, but you are not the clouds. The feeling is there, but you are not the feeling. Step 2. Question the story. Once you've created some space between you and the emotion, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Is this really about them not texting me back, or is this about my fear of abandonment? Is this really about my boss's criticism, or is this about the voice in my head that says I'm never good enough? Is this really about their success, or is this about my own insecurity? Most of the time, the trigger is just that, a trigger. It's touching something deeper, something older, something that has nothing to do with the present moment and everything to do with an old wound that never quite healed. Step 3. Starve the drama. Here's what your reactive mind doesn't want you to know. Drama feeds on attention. The more you feed it, the stronger it gets. The more you replay the conversation, the more real the offense becomes. The more you imagine their motives, the more convinced you become that your story is true. Starve it. Don't rehearse the comeback you should have said. Don't imagine the conversation you're going to have. Don't build a case for why you're right and they're wrong. Just don't feed it. This isn't suppression. This isn't pretending you don't feel what you feel. This is recognizing that some thoughts don't deserve your energy and some stories don't deserve to be told. These aren't theoretical ideals. They're daily practices. Small choices that seem insignificant in the moment but add up to a completely different way of being in the world. Every pause is a victory. Every time you choose observation over absorption, questioning over assumption, starving over feeding, you're rewriting the code. You're becoming someone who can't be controlled by the chaos around them. But here's what makes this even more important. The world is specifically designed to keep you reactive. And until you understand why, you'll keep getting pulled back into the old patterns. The systemic trap: the world profits from your reactivity. Step back and look at the bigger picture. Look at social media, designed to trigger you. Look at the news, engineered to outrage you. Look at advertising, crafted to make you feel inadequate, so you'll buy something to feel better. Your reactivity is profitable. Your insecurity is marketable. Your fear is sellable. The algorithm doesn't want you calm and centered. It wants you scrolling, clicking, buying, consuming. It wants you angry enough to share, insecure enough to compare, anxious enough to seek validation through likes and comments and external approval. The culture doesn't want you emotionally independent. It wants you dependent on the next purchase, the next relationship, the next achievement to make you feel worthy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if you do not have the approval of yourself." But the modern world is built on convincing you that those 10,000 opinions are exactly what you need. When you stay calm, you unplug from the machine. When you stop reacting, you stop being profitable. When you find your center, you stop needing what they're selling. This isn't paranoia. This is pattern recognition. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Every time you pause instead of react, you're not just helping yourself. You're stepping out of a system designed to keep you trapped. You're refusing to be a consumer of drama and becoming a creator of peace. But there's an even more personal level to this, because the people in your life, consciously or unconsciously, have learned exactly which buttons to push to get a reaction out of you. The relationship shift: unplugging the control panel. Think of your emotional reactions as a control panel. There's the anger button, the guilt button, the insecurity button, the fear button. Over the years, the people in your life have learned exactly where these buttons are and exactly how to press them. Your mother knows how to make you feel guilty. Your ex knows how to make you feel inadequate. Your boss knows how to make you feel anxious. Your friend knows how to make you feel jealous. They might not do it maliciously. They might not even realize they're doing it. But they've learned that when they say this thing or do that thing, you react in a predictable way. And sometimes that reaction serves them. When you get angry, you give them your attention. When you get defensive, you give them your energy. When you get hurt, you give them your power. Here's the shift. What if you unplugged the control panel? What if, when they pushed the anger button, nothing happened? What if, when they tried to make you feel guilty, you simply observed the attempt without taking the bait? What if, when they pressed the insecurity button, you responded with the calm confidence of someone who knows their own worth? This isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. This isn't about not caring. This is about choosing what you care about instead of having it chosen for you. When you stop being reactive, something interesting happens. The people who were using your reactions to control you suddenly don't know what to do with you. The drama they were feeding off of disappears. The power they had over your emotional state evaporates. Some people won't like this. They'll escalate. They'll try harder to get a reaction. They might even accuse you of being cold or distant or uncaring. That's not your problem to solve. That's information about who they are and what they need from you to feel comfortable. And that information tells you everything you need to know about whether this is a relationship worth investing in. The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. They'll appreciate your calmness. They'll be drawn to your stability instead of repelled by it. But this shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, a way of being that you develop over time through countless small choices. Mastery, the quiet power of not reacting. There's a moment when it clicks, when someone tries to push your buttons and you feel nothing, not numbness, not suppression, just a calm recognition of what's happening without the compulsive need to respond. They're angry, but you're not. They're panicked, but you're not. They're spinning a story about what everything means, but you're just observing the story without getting caught up in it. This is what mastery looks like, not the absence of feeling, but the presence of choice. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Why terrifying? Because when you truly accept yourself, when you know your own worth, independent of anyone else's opinion, you become uncontrollable. You can't be manipulated through guilt because you know your own intentions. You can't be controlled through fear because you've made peace with uncertainty. You can't be triggered through insecurity because you've stopped needing external validation to know who you are. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It doesn't make you uncaring. It makes you discerning. It doesn't make you disconnected. It makes you free. Free to respond from wisdom instead of wound. Free to choose your battles instead of being chosen by them. Free to give your energy to what matters instead of wasting it on what doesn't. People will notice this change in you. Some will be attracted to your calmness, like moths to a flame. Others will be threatened by your lack of reactivity and try even harder to get a rise out of you. Both responses tell you everything you need to know. The people worth keeping in your life will appreciate your growth. They'll find peace in your presence. They'll learn from your example. They might even ask you how you do it. The people who depend on your reactivity to feel significant will move on to easier targets. And that's not a loss. That's a liberation. But mastery isn't a destination. It's a practice. Every day you wake up and choose again. Every interaction you pause and remember. I have a choice here. Every trigger you ask, is this worth my peace? Most of the time the answer is no. The daily practice, small choices, big changes. Let me tell you what this looks like in real life, because philosophy without application is just intellectual entertainment. It's 7 a.m. and you check your phone. There's a text that immediately makes your stomach drop. Instead of spiraling into worst-case scenarios, you pause, you breathe, you ask, what story am I creating right now? You respond from a calm place instead of a reactive one. It's 2 p.m. and your coworker makes a passive-aggressive comment in the meeting. Instead of spending the rest of the day analyzing what they meant and plotting your response, you let it pass through you like water through a sieve. You don't take on their emotional state as your own. It's 8 p.m. and someone on social media posts something that would normally trigger you into writing a paragraph-long response. Instead, you recognize the urge, smile at your own predictability and scroll past. You don't feed the drama machine. It's 11 p.m. and your mind starts racing about tomorrow's presentation. Instead of lying awake, creating anxiety about things that haven't happened yet, you bring yourself back to the present moment. You remind yourself, I can handle whatever comes. These seem like small moments, insignificant choices, but they're not. They're the moments where you reclaim your power. They're the choices that compound into a completely different way of being. After months of this practice, you notice something. The things that used to destroy your peace don't even register anymore. The people who used to control your mood can't find the buttons to push. The situations that used to send you into tailspins are just situations. You haven't become heartless. You've become free. You haven't stopped caring. You've started choosing what deserves your care. The deeper truth, what you're really protecting, Here's what this is really about. You're not just learning to manage your emotions. You're not just developing better coping strategies. You're not just becoming less reactive. You're reclaiming your sovereignty. For too long, you've been a refugee in your own life, fleeing from one emotional reaction to the next, seeking shelter in other people's approval, other people's opinions, other people's moods. But you're not a refugee. You're a sovereign being. You have the right to peace. You have the right to choose your responses. You have the right to protect your inner world from anyone who would try to invade it with their chaos. This practice, this art of not reacting, is how you build the walls around your kingdom. Not walls that keep love out, but walls that keep drama out. Not walls that isolate you, but walls that protect what's sacred within you. Your peace is sacred. Your energy is sacred. Your attention is sacred. And you have every right to be selective about how you spend these precious resources. When you master your reactions, you master your life. When you control your inner world, the outer world loses its power over you. When you stop being reactive, you start being responsive. And there's a world of difference between the two. Reactive people are victims of circumstance. Responsive people are architects of their experience. Which one will you choose to be? The transformation who you become. 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, if you commit to this practice, you'll be a different person. Not perfect, not without challenges, but different in the ways that matter most. You'll walk into rooms and people will feel your calm. You'll face crises and others will look to you for stability. You'll encounter drama and it will bounce off you like rain off a roof. People will ask you, how do you stay so calm? How do you not let things get to you? How do you handle difficult people with such grace? And you'll remember this moment, this choice, this decision to stop letting the world control you and start controlling your response to the world. You'll remember the first time you paused instead of reacted. The first time you observed instead of absorbed. The first time you starved the drama instead of feeding it. You'll remember that it wasn't one grand gesture. It was 1,000 small choices. 1,000 tiny moments where you chose differently than you had before. The person you become through this practice, calm, centered, unshakable, that person was always inside you. You're not creating someone new. You're uncovering who you really are underneath all the reactivity and conditioning and borrowed emotions. You're coming home to yourself. Final reflection, the real freedom. So here we are at the end of this journey and the beginning of yours. You know the truth now. True detachment isn't indifference. It's power. It's the ability to observe without being disturbed, to witness without being wounded, to care without being controlled. You know that your reactions are not automatic responses to reality. They're choices. And when you realize you have a choice, everything changes. You know that the pause is where your freedom lives. That space between stimulus and response is where you reclaim your sovereignty, where you stop being a victim of circumstance and start being the author of your experience. You know that this isn't about becoming cold or uncaring. It's about becoming clear. It's about choosing what deserves your emotional energy and what doesn't. It's about protecting your peace like the precious resource it is. You know that the world profits from your reactivity, that systems and people depend on your emotional volatility to control you. And you know that when you stop being reactive, you unplug from those systems and reclaim your power. Most importantly, you know that this is a practice, not a perfection. You'll have days when you react instead of respond. You'll have moments when you get pulled back into old patterns. That's not failure. That's human. The difference is that now you'll catch yourself faster. You'll pause sooner. You'll choose better. And every time you do, you'll strengthen the muscle of emotional mastery. This is your invitation to freedom, Not the kind of freedom that comes from changing your circumstances, though that might happen too. The kind of freedom that comes from changing your relationship to your circumstances. The kind of freedom that no one can take away from you because it lives within you. You don't become colder, you become clearer, stronger, and no one can take that from you. If this message spoke to something in you, there's another video waiting for you. Keep going. Stay grounded. Your journey to emotional mastery starts now.